forensic pathologists practicing in the Philippines?
There are only two
There are only
formally trained. So that means you're a pathologist and then you underwent subspecialty training in forensic pathology. And the Philippine Society of Pathologists recognizes only two
Only two.
in the Philippines.
Okay. And you also teach at the College of Medicine of the University of the Philippines in Manila. Is it correct?
Yes, sir.
So you're one
Yes,
of the
Mr.
faculty.
Chair.
Yes. Are you also the current chairperson of the department?
Not anymore. I
Okay.
served my 3 terms from 2016 to June of this year. I stepped down already.
But prior to, I'll go directly to the gist of my questions po, Doctora, Mr. Chair. Prior to the war on drugs, you were already a trained forensic pathologist, right? Tama po yun?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chair.
And during the war on drugs, you were also involved in conducting autopsies on several of the victims. Is it correct, ma'am?
Only those who were referred to me.
Okay.
I
That's why.
managed to see
Yeah.
some.
Okay. That's why I'm also interested to know because, Mr. Chair, we only have two expert no in the Philippines. I'm wondering why, Mr. Chair, our PNP has had our PNP has had I mean those cases involving EJK, have they reached out to you in trying to solicit your services in order to at least ferret out, for example, in the investigation of cases involving EJK? Wala akong nag-avail ng yung professional services ang gobyerno during the war on drugs.
The cases I saw came from families,
Okay.
lawyers, NGOs, the government actually referring. That would be rare. Although recently the Department of Justice has been sending the Bucor cases to me.
Okay, doon po sa na-examine ninyo, those families who went to you and requested for your services. Ito po yung postmortem, di ba may postmortem po na autopsy ginagawa, right?
Yeah, all of them are postmortem.
Yes.
But most, just a few of them, I could still conduct an autopsy. So that means the body is more recently dead.
Okay.
You can still do an external and
Yeah.
internal exam. But then many of my cases recently are mostly skeletal remains. These
Okay.
are the exhumations.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask po, Doktora, kasi the cases of EJK, the usual reasons that we hear from the operatives ay nanlaban, no? So the understanding really is that merong may official or formal operation na gagawin, tapos ang scenario is may baril, nanlaban kaya nabaril. In all of those cases that you have handled, you have conducted autopsy ng EJK, what is the common na nakikita niyo po doon sa mga examination ninyo in relation to the issue of nanlaban?
That
Kasi,
is,
yes, Mr. Chair, kasi gusto ko lang pong malaman whether or not, kasi yung sabi niyo nga po na mostly ang investigation relies on evidence, witnesses' testimonies, and sometimes subjective. So science cannot deny. And one of the things that probably for me, it's a lost opportunity sana for the government to really find out whether there's really parang yung rampant killings in the streets, no? At nanlaban yung sinasabi. Doon po sa mga cases nyo, what does your examination say?
as I said earlier, it's a poor excuse to kill someone, especially if you are trained.
Uh-huh.
We would expect the police to be. It's it's very, very unusual that the Philippine police would use nanlaban as a reason for killing. Okay? But if you would look at evidence, we'd have to go to individual cases. And as I said earlier, that is best analyzed with totality of evidence. And as my limitation is, many times I only have the body
Okay.
that is poorly preserved, and I have very limited information on the circumstances to reconstruct. However, there are some instances where it's obvious. And earlier I said some of them have defense type injuries. That's one. I have not gone over all of the cases to come up with an analysis. I'll do that soon. But another observation is that these people sustained multiple gunshot wounds. And the head, the chest were targeted. And those shots are meant to kill. So, and rarely, I doubt if there are actually cases brought to the hospital where these victims were shot and injured. They're shot to be killed. That's one observation I can make.
Ibig sabihin po, tama po kung, for example, i-assume ko na most of the autopsies or the cases you have handled in relation to EJK, po ma'am, yung summary, yung namatay po, no, in relation to drug war, ay based on your examination, it does not reconcile with the usual na parati po natin naririnig na nanlaban based on your findings, your forensic findings.
Well, as I said again earlier, hindi naman porke nagbunot ng baril or naglabas ng baril ng isang tao, ay papatay na ang pulis. And I believe it was asked earlier, asan na itong mga baril na to? There really has to be an objective scientific investigation here. A lot is missing. Like for instance, police would say that the individual fired a gun. But where is the gun? The first thing you do when you secure it is you check if it's operational, meaning it can be fired. Okay? And the other is you might want to check for, again, it was mentioned earlier, gunshot residues on the person. And if the police are still relying on an ancient paraffin test, that's crazy. But really, there are ways to rebut or refute a claim such as nanlaban. There are ways. If you only do an objective, scientific, independent investigation. But unfortunately, in the Philippines, the killers investigate themselves.
Well, I agree with you on that, Doktora po. No? I'm asking you this po, Dr. Fortun, Mr. Chair, because I guess you were invited to a conference or press conference years ago. Tama po ba in where you said that based po dun sa mga findings you sa remains that you examined, mga death certificates, ang sinasabi ay ang cause of death ay natural causes. But based on your investigation, it parang ang result actually ay hindi siya natural death, homicide. No? Tama po ba yon? And are these cases related to the EJK or are they the EJK cases?
I'm glad that issue has been brought up because that has been my frustration. There was one autopsy case I did where it was brought to my attention that this guy had a death certificate saying he died of acute myocardial infarction. But here is the body with multiple gunshot wounds. He even had a bullet embedded in the wrist. And therefore, definitely this is not a natural death. I was asked to review death certificates to look for other cases, but I said there is nothing I can refute these death certificates with until I was asked to examine the skeletal remains of those we exhumed. And so far, I have a collection of about 14
14 cases.
cases. 12 of them had an outright natural cause, pneumonia, acute myocardial infarction, sepsis. But here are the bones saying they were shot multiple times, right? One case I still am working on because the history is he was in jail for a drug-related case. And he was mauled in jail, brought to a hospital. And then the death certificate says skin infection. Okay, so that's still pending because I'm still asking for the hospital records. My most recent case is also an example of a miscertification. The doctor did not write a natural cause. However, I believe there is an understatement. Why? The doctor, who's a police medical legal officer, said gunshot wounds, trunk. But I was given a picture of the decedent or the one who died taken after he was shot. And clearly in the face, the mouth is blown up. You have lacerations all over. And this is, just by looking at it, this is consistent with an intraoral shot. But it was not cited by the police doctor in the death certificate. So I would count this also as a miscertification.
Doktora, yung mga ganito po, when these cases are brought to your attention po, and there are mostly yung mga cause of death are natural death, etc. Saan po galing sino pong nag-i-issue nitong mga death certificates na ito?
In my collection
Yes.
of cases, curiously, 5 of them were signed by one doctor from the City Health Office of Caloocan. 4 of them were from one doctor who writes her name after her name, private physician, somewhere in Commonwealth. So this is Quezon City. And then the others are a sprinkling of some doctors here and there.
So this is the time when the drug war was at its peak, no?
This would be from 2016 onwards.
It's I don't know if it's a coincidence, Mr. Chair, because the way Dr. Fortun relayed this to us, Mr. Chair, I remember before the formation of the QUADCOM, we had a committee hearing ng Committee on Human Rights, and we were also asking about the cause of death, yung karamihan po sa mga namatay. And it's funny because you've mentioned about Caloocan. In this particular case that I distinctly remember, ang sabi is, nung namatay, di binarel. Tapos ang bumarel, hindi naman mga uniformed men. Ang bumarel, kung di ako nagkakamali, I think Miss Conti can correct me, no, kung hindi maganda yung pag remember ko doon sa narration nung isang pamilya nung namatay. Ang bumarel apparently is a vigilante type of killing, yung cause of bumarel. So hindi nakilala, so dinala doon sa morgue, kukunin nila. Apparently they need to pay 5,000 pesos. I don't know, kasi hindi naman namin kultura yon, but maybe because of the services that the morgue had gone through over the body, so the family needed to pay 5,000 pesos. Pero nung kinuha po nila yung katawan, ang cause of death is a pneumonia. Pero alam nilang binaril. This was in Caloocan also. And it's funny because Dr. Raquel Fortun mentioned about that same place, no? That's why I'm asking you, Doktora, based on kasi ang nakikita po namin dito, there's really a widespread cover-up, no, nang nangyari during the EJK. Kasi yung mga, at the height of the war on drugs, may mga cases na sinasabi apart from nanlaban, the cause of death ay iba, no, pneumonia. And here you are, Doktora, sharing us your expert opinion. And in fact, you have already